Hi, my name is Sarah Little. I'm a journalist and the founder of More to Her Story. So the war in Syria started in early 2011, and it was a series of armed uprisings and anti-government protests that were part of a wider series of protests across the Arab world, also known as the Arab Spring. And my parents and I had visited Syria in early 2011, and little did we know that just a few months later, things would spiral completely out of control, and ultimately the Syrian people would pay the highest price. And fast forward a few years, and I was studying in university. It was 2017. It was one of the heights of the war, and I just remember seeing on the news just what was unfolding, and it was so devastating. I didn't know if there was anything that I could do in my small power to help anything. I felt like young Syrian women's experiences were not being sufficiently told. Their stories weren't being told. And so I decided to go to Jordan, which is one of the countries that has hosted the most number of Syrians since the war began. And they are home to the largest refugee camp in the Middle East. And so I decided to go there and interview young women and girls and befriend them and tell their stories, hopefully, in a way that could perhaps move other people to care more deeply about their experiences too. And so that's what I did, and that's kind of how More to Her Story was initially born, was going to Jordan and hearing the stories of young Syrian women. I think something I heard so often while I was traveling and interviewing girls was that I have nowhere to express myself and the challenges that I'm facing as a young woman in my society. And I have nowhere to safely or freely do that. And so that's what I wanted to do, is create a space for girls to do that. And then I ended up going to other countries, in Africa, in Europe, meeting with more girls, hearing more stories. And I realized systemic gender inequity is not exclusive to one country or one region or one culture. It's everywhere. And so I wanted to create a space for girls everywhere to talk about these issues. The original idea was always about wanting to activate agency in girls and young women and remind them that they have the power to rewrite the narrative of their lives, even if that narrative has been written for them by other people, and they can take that power back, and that their voices and their stories and their ideas matter and that they have value. That core idea of what More to Her Story is and what it always was supposed to be, that hasn't changed. But what has changed is that, as you're saying, news outlets have picked up on this, and they've come to me and More to Her Story to wanting to tell those stories of girls and broadcast them and platform them to a much wider audience, which has been really cool. And those stories have gotten to be heard by millions of people, literally. So it's cool.